Okay.
Yeah, we're now live, Chairman, so good to go.
Okay. Well, good evening to everybody and welcome to Daventry District Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Steve Osborne. I'm the Chairman of the committee. You will, in a few minutes, after I go through a few things, you will see the other members. They will announce themselves who are taking part in the committee. Officers, I shall call by their Christian names. Councillors, I will say councillor. We have Tony Gillett, who is the director, one of their directors, who's in charge, as one of his charges is planning. We've got two planners, Keith Thursfield and also John Phillips. We've got our legal man, and that's what I call him all the time, so I shall refer to him as legal man. You'll see his hand there. And we've got Marina, who is the clerk for the evening, taking the minutes. If any of the speakers go over 3 minutes, as soon as 3 minutes is up, she will say 3 minutes, Chairman, and I would expect speakers then to finish. So, as you gathered, it's a virtual meeting. It's being streamed live on YouTube. A roll call will take place before the meeting actually starts, so you can that'll ensure all members are present and you'll be able to see who is who. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking, because we get horrible noises through. Speakers who have registered to speak, they will have 3 minutes, and when the 3 minutes is up, as I've just said, Marina will interrupt and say 3 minutes, Chairman, and that way I would ask you to sum up. I'd ask you not to clap, hiss and boo, and in fact to swear, because we had somebody swearing a while ago as well. After each planning application, there will be a proposal. It'll either be a proposal to support officers' advice or against officers' advice. There will be a roll call then throughout the members to say whether they support that proposal or not. That's not supporting the application or not, that's supporting the proposal that's been made, so listen carefully. I think that is absolutely everything from that page. So much paperwork with these Zoom meetings. First of all, the minutes, to confirm the minutes of the planning committee held on the 9th of December. Is it your wish, when possible, they be signed as a true record? Put a hand in front of you if you're all happy with that. That would seem to be all are happy.
No, it's not, Chair. I've had a hand up to say that I'm unhappy.
I was just about to say, anybody unhappy? In fact, if you're unhappy, can you tell
certainly.
us why?
I just put a relatively small point. On page 6, that's page 6 of the document back, about 2/3 of the way down, there's a paragraph that begins, Councillor Ken Ritchie was sympathetic to the development, but it goes on, Councillor Ritchie could not support public charging points. I've been campaigning like mad for public charging points. But what I couldn't support was the lack or the inadequacy of the proposal for public charging points. So I don't know, I'm sure that our officers will be able to make some tiny insertion there just to correct in case anybody gets the wrong impression. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. I'm sure none of the committee would want you associated with not having cat charging points when definitely you're of the opposite opinion. I'm sure that was a slip of the pen somewhere, and I'm sure that can be put right. Are you all happy with that committee? Yes. Yeah, everybody's happy with that. Anybody else against the trueness of the minutes? No? Okay. They'll be signed when possible. Apologies for absence, please, Marina.
Apologies received from Councillor Daniel Cribbin, Chair.
Okay. Nobody else? No, we must all be here then. Members' interests, disclosable interests.
Chair, can I make one reference to the Britsworth planning application, simply that I do live in the conservation area?
you live in a conservation area
In
or
the Brixworth conservation area.
Right, okay,
Is referenced.
thank you. Party whipping arrangements.
Chairman, we've got Councillor Dabbs who's wishing to declare an interest, I believe.
Thank you, Tony. Councillor Dabbs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I recognise in the audience Michael Willis, a former work colleague of mine. This is entirely the same declaration I made last time we had what is, I think, a very similar application in Woodford Hulls. I no longer work in the same place as Michael Willis, and the relationship is very much arm's length, I would say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dabbs. Right, party whipping arrangements.
None, Chairman.
Thank you. To members of the public, that means we don't get together as groups or political groups or any kind of groups and decide how we're going to vote beforehand. We listen to all the information on the evening before we vote. There are no applications withdrawn or delegated under delegated powers, so we go straight to the first application, which
Chairman,
is in. Yes, Tony.
Sorry, just before we do that.
Oh yes, we've got to do the members. Yeah, that's what you mean. Sorry,
Yes,
the roll call, Marina, please.
Okay, if councillors could just declare that they can see and hear the proceedings. Councillor Chandler.
Yes to both.
Councillor Cribbin has given apologies. Councillor Dabbs.
Seeing here, thank you.
Councillor Frost.
Yeah, many thanks. Good evening.
Councillor Harris.
Yes to both, thanks.
Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes to both.
Councillor James.
And here.
Councillor Longley.
Yes to both.
Councillor Matton.
Yes to both, thank you.
Councillor Parker.
Yes to both.
Councillor Ritchie.
Yes to both, thank you.
Councillor Robertson.
Yes to both.
Councillor Smith.
All good. Thank you.
Councillor Wesley.
Confirm both.
And Councillor Osborne.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Marina. We go straight then to the first application, which is 0422, and it's in Brixworth. Over to you, Keith.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully this will work this time, as we had a few problems last time, I recall.
You're a wizard, Keith. It's working.
Excellent. Right, this property is called Cherrybank, as it says there, Brixworth Hall Park, which sits in the heart, really, of the Brixworth Conservation Area. For those who don't know the area, it was a former park surrounding a hall which has been demolished. There's a big lake on this side, and there's various contours across the site. And basically, the proposal is for this property here, which sits in the conservation area, to have front and rear extensions. That's the existing site plan, proposed site plan. So there's a front porch extension to go here between the existing front and the garage, and a rear extension to go on the back to replace an existing rear extension, which is going to be set at an angle to the property, which I think is, to be fair, part of the concern and the issue. Obviously, that's that's the elevations. So that shows you what the house looks like now. I think it's fair to say, it's possibly part of the argument, it's fairly ordinary. The houses in the development, we think, date from probably around the 1960s. They are individual designs. They aren't necessarily exactly the same houses. Some are split level, I know, from past experience, where the site drops away down towards the lake. But this is what it looks like now. So I think it's fairly plain. And I think the idea behind this proposal is to try and make the property look a bit more modern, with something a bit different. And that seems to be the one of the main causes for concern. So this is the proposal for the front part of the extension, the front porch. And more radically, probably, this is the proposal for the angled extension on the back of the property. That's showing what it would look like from the north, and that's showing again from the east. I think just while we're on this slide, I'll point out there is a height difference across the site. As I said, the site, this property on this side is at a higher elevation, and this property on the other side is at a lower elevation. So this is what the proposal looked like from the south. We've got these 3D images, which I think show the rear extension in particular in various contexts. So that gives you a rough idea of what it's going to look like. And these are photographs. This shows the front of the dwelling with the dwelling set there and the existing garage to the front. This is the dwelling and this is the garage. Then that's the existing garage. Now this shows the existing rear of the property with the property on that side set at a higher level. That property is Paddock Cottage. Then again, there's just some views taken from the rear. I think the important thing to see here is again the land falling away in front of the extension. I think it's worth saying at this point as well that this extension obviously is very similar to the existing property. And I think if we were to judge it against the Brixworth Conservation Area plan and the various guidelines and village design statements, there wouldn't be much doubt that that was in keeping with the property. Looks very similar. And I think that's really the whole point of this application. Having started with that, which probably does comply, they want to do something a bit different to modernise the property and take advantage of this slope in the land. So on that basis, I was just going to say, yeah, there's some pictures again showing the height differences and different weather conditions where the tree leaves are off the trees. Just makes it a bit easier to see. And as I say, I think the idea is to try and modernise the property, make it look a bit different from the sort of 1960s vernacular that it looks like now. And our view was, after lengthy negotiations, including conservation officer was involved, we felt that an acceptable solution had been reached. We didn't really think it harmed the conservation area that much, especially as the rear extension will not be able to be seen anyway from any public vantage point. It is actually a kind of a private road in there. So again, you only go in there really if you need to go in there. It's not a public thoroughfare or anything. And there's only one way in and one way out. And as I say, they're individual designed houses. So in that context, we didn't particularly think it was that out of character. So we didn't think it really harmed the property. It does obviously changes the property, but we would probably agree, as with the applicant, it doesn't make it worse. It just makes it look more modern. And we didn't think there was any adverse impact on the neighbours that we could really sustain an objection to. And I think the important thing as well in the context of the conservation areas, I just mention it because it is mentioned in the report, both the planning officer and the conservation officer didn't really think it had any adverse impact on views of the church. There is a slide at the end in the applicant's presentation that shows you the important views that are identified in the conservation area of the church, but this isn't one of them across the back of the properties, but I think we'll see that slide when we get to it. So on that basis, we're recommending approval, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. We have two speakers. The first one is Lisa Daniels, who's against the application. Lisa, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Lisa Daniels. I've actually been asked by the neighbours to represent them for their objections to this. The principal objections are, well, the first thing is there's no heritage statement or analysis to accompany this, and our understanding is that that is required because this is conservation area under section 66 of the Planning Listed Buildings Conservation Act 1990, but I'm sure that the planning officer will advise you to the ramifications of not having that assessment or analysis being put in. The objections are twofold. First of all, we do not believe that it sits well within the area. And as you can see from the figures that are here, this view is taken from Paddock Cottage straight into the back garden. And we've tried to put the roof there to show what the impact will be. It looks like a separate building from both sides with this new extension. It is massive. It's out of proportion, and the ridge lines do not appear to be in context with the current ridge lines, all of which are requirements by conservation. It goes against the kind of historical character of the conservation area. I know the planning officer says these are all individual, but actually the three buildings here are quite similar in their design. They're not split level. The split level properties are up the other end of the street, and the front of the front extension is also rather massive and will come so far forward it will look like it joins on to the garage that they recently built. Furthermore, it doesn't promote anything other than a modern building. It will make the whole property out of context with the rest of the street view here. Furthermore, from a privacy point of view, it said there's no privacy overlooking. There is actually, if you have a look at these pictures are taken from Cherrybanks, which is next door, from a bedroom window and from a sitting room window. And the garage is being proposed to be made into windows with a terrace area in front of it. And that will look directly into and down into the two rooms. So the lower picture is the bedroom. And also there is a square, you can see that's approximately where the front door is going to be, which is about 12 metres away. So the loss of privacy to Cherrybanks is quite considerable in both these rooms at the front of their building. One's a bedroom and the other's a sitting room. We do not think that this is a good development. It's not a sympathetic design. It's not a good design. I understand the idea of modernising it, but there are
3
ways,
minutes, Chairman.
Okay,
there
thank
are
you.
ways of modernising and making this work without being so intrusive and so massive. Should the committee...
Could you wind up, please?
Yeah, just 2 seconds. Should you decide to allow any proposal to be put forward, we ask for some conditions that the developer develops within the timeframes of Monday to Friday between the working hours and Saturday morning only, because in previous constructions they've been quite inconsiderate working on Sunday mornings in the summer.
Can you please finish now?
Yeah, at 7 o'clock. So we ask for that condition should you decide to put this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the second speaker is Louise Miller, who's the applicant. Again, you have 3 minutes, Louise.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to thank the planning team for their engagement and collaboration. Due to the concerns raised by the various parties, we've made many changes to the proposals, and the team have helped us come up with a scheme that is now recommended for approval by the planning officer, and whose report concludes that the proposal does not adversely impact on the conservation zone, does not impact adversely on the neighbouring properties, and is an overall improvement to the dwelling house. Cherrybank is situated towards the end of Brixworth Hall Park, which you've heard is a private road with no through traffic. The house is not visible from the church and does not sit on any of the vistas identified on the Brixworth Camp plan. Image 1 that I submitted shows the red dot in the centre being this property, and it shows the purple arrows are the vistas, and you can clearly see that the proposal impacts on none of them. The extension does not overmass the site. The rear extension in the main replaces the existing extension, as you've seen from the photographs. The front extension infills existing covered areas and creates a new sheltered area. The front and rear of the property are not overlooked. The front of the property is largely hidden by the detached garage, as you've seen, and image 2 also shows that and shows the street scene. The rear extension is not overlooked by the neighbours. Image 3 shows the existing extension to be replaced, the slope of the land and the enclosed nature of the garden and the fences and hedges. You do have to get into peculiar positions to see the property from outside of the property. Positions that you probably wouldn't normally get into on a day-to-day basis. The back boundary of the garden, which isn't shown in the photographs, is also not overlooked. The planning officer who has recommended the plans for approval has visited the site, entered the garden and understood the setting and the proposals in detail, and the comments are therefore based on experience at this property. Cherrybank was built in the 60s, as you've guessed, and has no unique character to retain, and actually is not similar to either of the houses or the 3 houses around it, not similar at all. So there's no unique character to retain, and the proposed changes provide the house with a cohesive design, front and back, which, given the diversity of the houses in the road itself, in our opinion, does not negatively impact on the area. In fact, next door but one, a brand new house, completely modern in design, with significantly more glass frontage, was built in the last 5 years with no objections. So the concerns raised by the neighbours, I believe, are fully addressed within the planning officer's proposal and the images provided to support. As already mentioned, the conclusion of the planning officer's report is that the plans are an improvement on the existing dwelling house, have no adverse impact on the conservation area or the neighbouring properties. And finally, and most importantly for me, the design will greatly improve the life of me and my family. It will provide a home suitable to allow 3 generations to live side by side, which is extremely important for us. So thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you. Right, local members, we have 2. You ought to have a lottery. Which one of you 2 want to go first? So is it Councillor Parker or is it Councillor Harris? Councillor Parker, do you wish to go first, or do you wish Councillor Harris to go first?
Are you okay, Councillor Harris, if I go first?
Absolutely fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I refer to the Conservation Officer's comments on the property, which lies in the middle of the conservation area. And I believe her comments carry more weight in determining this application. The Conservation Officer has commented 3 times to different applications, but the advice given seems to have been rejected. The Brixworth Conservation Appraisal and Management Plan, adopted December 17, clearly states under 9.1, and that's under alterations and extensions, there will be a presumption against proposals for alteration and extensions which adversely affect the character of the conservation area or its settings. Alteration and extensions should be sympathetic to the character of the building in terms of proportion, scale, materials and detailing. And 9.2, which is scale, additions to existing buildings or new development will generally not exceed 2 stories, and the ridgeline, which they are here, there's several, should respect the ridgeline of adjacent buildings. New developments and alterations must not affect the established building line nor create gaps where previously there were buildings or walls. So I think it affects those. This document has been referred to 3 times, and again, the applicants seems to have actually discarded this. The case officer refers to numerous policies which this application does not meet, namely Part 2 of the plan, RA1, C and C3, the Brixworth Neighbourhood Plan, Policy 1. It is in harmony with the surroundings in terms of scale, layout and design. Policy 8, which is the conservation area, the form, design, scale and materials respect the conservation area, and in the case of an extension, the host building. I think there is actually changing the character of the host building there without a doubt, as you can see from the photographs. The village design statement, development in the conservation area should reflect the general character of existing buildings and be appropriate in scale. MPPF 130 reads, permission should be refused for development of poor design that fails to take the opportunities available for improving the character and quality of an area and the way it functions, taking into account any local design standards or style guides in plans or supplementary planning documents. Those are the ones I've referred to. And finally, EMB 10 of the Part 2 plan covering design, A3, ensuring the scale, density, massing, height, layout, and access of the proposed combine to ensure development blends well within the site and with its surroundings. And B, development of poor design that does not add to the character and quality of an area and the way it functions will not be supported. I agree with the Conservation Officer that this application fails on the policy I've referred to, and therefore I propose we oppose Officer's advice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So you're proposing that the application be refused?
I am, Chair.
Right, do you have a seconder?
Yes, please.
That was Councillor Irving Swift. Right, you will go before the other local member then, if you wish.
No, I
to
have
speak.
nothing to add. I think Councillor Parker said it all. Thank you, and I support the our officer for our conservation officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I acknowledge the points made and the observations in regard to policies, but I would like to hear from others on this matter. So I'm obviously not in a position at this stage to have formed a view myself entirely. A couple of principles or comments I would like to make. Generally, I am in favour of families looking to grow space and extend where necessary to suit their lifestyle. Clearly, if sympathetic in design, scale, materials and location, there are obviously things that are prerequisite to consider. I'm also not averse to some degree of modernity, again, assuming sympathetic in design, scale, materials, etc. Not all of the properties on that private road are from the 1960s. There is an older property and there are newer properties, as you've actually heard from the applicant. But the rear extension for sure is extremely private. That's the first observation I would make. So you've heard comments about visibility of that extension in the rear. You can't actually see it, I don't think, from anywhere, probably not even from the adjoining garden. So from a balance point of view, I would acknowledge the applicant's point on that it's difficult to see from that area. Clearly the extension and the changes to the front, you will be able to see from the private road. There is one other point that has been mentioned actually by the applicant and not referred to by Councillor Parker, which I think is worth mentioning, and it is in regard to protected views, again linking back to the neighbourhood plan. And I believe it refers to policies in the policy section 6.5.1, point 12, which suggests from the Saxon Church over Hall Park as a protected view. Now, again, I'm not entirely clear. I have had a wander to have a look myself, but it states that it's a historic view of a wooded landscape looking down over the church over Hall Park. It's remained little change over the centuries, except of course the Brixworth Hall was demolished in the 1950s, but the lake and stables now remain, obviously surrounded by the original high wall. Hall Park has a number of modern houses within the walls, but they are largely hidden by the wooded landscape created when the hall was built in the 18th century. Now, officers are saying that they're satisfied that views from neighbouring houses back to the church will not be impeded. Again, due to the location of the garden, that obviously is difficult to judge unless you're physically in that space or physically in the space of the garden of the neighbours next door. But I'm querying effectively whether in fact it would impact on the view from the church. The applicant suggested that it doesn't. I think that might be a seasonal issue. Certainly in the winter months like now, stick season, I think you possibly could see the property. Clearly in summer months, spring months, when we have more foliage, you probably can't. So I'm sitting on the fence firmly at the moment. I'm very interested to hear from other members at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open it up to other members, I want to you to list the reasons for refusal so members know what the proposal is. So could you give me your reasons for refusal? Vice Chairman.
Yes, the Brixworth Conservation Appraisal, ENV 10, MPPF 130, the neighbourhood plan and the village design statement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, Tony, people that wish to speak.
Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Dabbs, Chairman.
Right, in that order, Councillor Ritchie, would you like to speak first?
Thank you, Chair. I did actually want firstly to ask the question that you have just asked, the basis in which we might reject this application. Having spent much of the day hearing of the problems of a family with 4 children in a 1-bedroom flat, I'm not necessarily sympathetic to those who have big houses, but I just don't see what is wrong with this one. We've heard reference to the conservation area, and I'm looking at towards the bottom of page 17, that there's a presumption against proposals for alterations and extensions which adversely affect the character of the conservation area or its setting. Well, I mean, I'm sure that the conservation area is not a conservation area because of the architecture of this particular property. It looks exceptionally ordinary. And what's more, the point has been made, not only is it exceptionally ordinary, but it's extraordinarily difficult to actually see it properly because it's just surrounded by other properties and trees. So I can't understand what the problem is there. I wonder if the officers can respond. The comments that are given on pages 16 and 17 from the parish council are essentially about massing. I know that we can reject applications if we feel that they constitute overdevelopment, and I'm aware that there's a certain percentage that the footprint of a building should not exceed the percentage of the of the area of the land, but it doesn't appear to me that we could make a case against it on those grounds. But I would be grateful if officers could respond on that. I sometimes regret that in Daventry, we don't have the same procedures that are used by some other planning committees in neighbouring authorities, where it is possible to actually put back questions to those who attend the meeting. I just find it amazing that there is this discussion from the parish council having been concerned that the scale and massing, and I'm quoting here, the scale and massing of the extension would have a considerable impact on the views to the All Saints Church, which was considered adverse to an established visual amenity. I do wish that sort of get advice from the plain English people before they write such stuff. I assume it means that they don't like it, but we seem to have seen quite clearly that that there is no way in which this extension wouldn't interrupt such a view, and I can see no reason for not supporting officers' advice in this, and therefore opposing the motion that's been put.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Before I get an answer from Keith Thursfield on your question, I'll go to Councillor Dabbs just in case he raises some questions. Councillor Dabbs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Strangely enough, I do have a question, which I'm sure the officer can confirm. I noted when we were looking at the various speeches and so on, the photographs with the proposed roof of the extension as submitted by the objector. When I looked at that picture, it looked like the ridgeline of the extension was as high as the guttering on the main house. And I was just wondering whether in the officer's views that was an accurate portrayal. So I can see from that one, it is actually, if I'm looking at it correctly, it's below the guttering of the original house. But
I'm
not
sure
much.
that they will answer that. Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't look like it's very much, but okay. I mean, I think in terms of this, I would be tending more towards what Councillor Ritchie has said, that the reasons for objecting I can't see that there's that many, and nobody wants an extension and change to their next door properties and so on. But that, unfortunately, probably is not a good enough reason for us to object. So I think I would tend to like Councillor Ritchie, go with officer's advice and oppose this motion. And I think if we do go to approve this, like the objector says, I think a condition on the work time would be very helpful, since there seems to be a past history of not conforming. I think since so many applications do have a work restriction, that wouldn't be out of order in this case. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. Keith, would you like to answer those questions posed by those two councillors?
Sorry, Chair. I was trying to unmute myself. It's difficult to do when you're sharing the screen. Yeah. Well, there's the answer on the roof height. It is below the eaves height of the existing property. That's the elevation. So that should be the correct drawing, showing the correct relationship. So I think that deals with that one. I think Councillor Ritchie's question was more about what were the kind of parish council trying to say, really. I think all they're trying to say really is they think it's, in terms of the design, it's obviously a modernish design. It sits at an angle to the property rather than being built straight on the back. That's an issue. The appearance obviously is quite modern. It's not traditional. I think, as I said when I started, what's on the back extension already is traditional. Obviously, the person has applied for something different, so it is different. And massing, I mean, I think, again, to be fair, you could say compared to a normal single-storey extension, maybe this section of roof in particular is something that you wouldn't normally see. So I think that was the kind of gist of what the parish council were trying to say. It's unorthodox in that sense, I suppose, is what they're saying. But as I did say, and as I think possibly Councillor Ritchie mentioned, or was it perhaps Councillor Harris, it's hidden away at the back anyway. I think it's Councillor Harris, perhaps. It's hidden away at the back anyway. So the only view you'll actually get from the front is that view. You won't even know that extension is there, really. And I think that's part of the issue. If you say that it harms the conservation area and it's contrary to all these policies, I think you've just got to say, well, how likely is it that that's going to be the decider, if you like, given that you can't really see it from anywhere in that public view from what is effectively a private road. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Keith. Speakers, then Tony.
Councillor James, Chairman.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I think really we've got to look at this from the point of view of, does it adversely affect the conservation area? Answer, no. Does it enhance the conservation area? Yes, it does, strangely enough. This is different, a little bit different. I like the angular position of the extension at the back, and it makes what would otherwise be an addition of boxes, if you like, look interesting and attractive. Not that it's going to be seen from the front, but it is different, and I think it's beneficial to this particular property. I haven't been around here since 1969. It's a little bit different then, and I was quite surprised when you said it was built in the 60s, but my memory must be fading me because it wasn't quite as developed as that then. But it doesn't affect the conservation area at all. And in terms of its particular surroundings and the adjoining properties, it's actually an enhancement, I feel. And I would certainly go with officer's advice on this one.
Thank you, Councillor James. Tony, any more speakers?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith.
Chair, just a question really to Keith. It was mentioned a potential loss of privacy from a window of the proposed extension. I just wondered your thoughts on that and whether we should consider a condition for frosted glass if that is the case.
Thank you. Somebody's got a nice clock. Is that you, Councillor Smith?
Oh. Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah, it chimes nicely. Right, over to you, Keith. Can you answer that question from Councillor Smith?
Yeah, yes, Chairman. Basically, I don't think we think there is going to be that much of a loss of privacy. I mean, this was our point really, that it's single story, that it's in the centre, effectively in the centre of the property. And I think, as we saw in one of the photographs that I'm just trying to find, you can see that it's quite kind of secluded. I mean, that's the looking the one way, where you've got this lower property on this side, and that's looking the other way, where you've got the higher property on the other side. And obviously, it is partly to replace this extension that's already here. So apart from the roof going up to sort of this area, as we saw on the 3D sketches, I mean, that's the context really. I can't personally see how that's going to cause too much loss of privacy either side. But
thank you, Keith.
Obviously, it's a subjective view. We saw the photographs that the other objector put in. So I mean, I'm quite happy just to share that one last time if you want to see that slide. I think it was that one.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Okay, speakers, Tony.
None more indicated, Chairman.
Right, as there are no more speakers indicated wishing to speak, we'll go to the proposal, which is to refuse the application, go against officer's advice for the reasons that were given, which has been seconded. All those in favour, over to the head count with you, Marina.
Councillor Chandler.
Against.
Councillor Dabbs.
Against.
Councillor Frost.
Against.
Councillor Harris.
Abstain.
Councillor Irving Swift.
For.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Longley.
Against.
Councillor Matton.
Against.
Councillor Parker.
Or.
Councillor Ritchie.
Against.
Councillor Robertson.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Wesley.
Against.
941.
3-1.
9 in favour, 3 against, 1 abstention, Chair.
Right, 931. So that proposal has been lost. So I need another proposal now, ladies and gentlemen. I have a hand up in front of me, which is Councillor Robertson. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose that we accept officer's advice. I've got little to say on this matter. Basically, I agree with everything that Councillor James said.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor James.
Yep.
Do you wish to speak?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Right. Councillor Irving Swift, I can see, wishes to speak.
Yes, if the proposal go forward, should we add what the one about the time of building, that to make sure that they don't work on unsatisfactory hours, because it's true that a lot of small builders have been working outside of what is normally the hours. So could we have please a schedule for when it's allowed to be built or not?
Right, that doesn't sound unreasonable. I'll ask the officer whether that's possible. If it is, I'll go to the proposer. Officer, is that possible? Keith?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Chairman. Slow to unmute again. Yes, it is possible, but the only thing I would say is when you did mention because of the current situation, equally, you might remember last summer in particular, the government wrote to us saying we should be more lenient on these hours conditions because of the situation, allowing builders to work outside the normal times. So sort of getting conflicting advice really. Whilst I understand people might want to protect neighbours' amenities at unsocial times, there's also the government saying, or certainly was saying last summer, we should allow this work to go ahead and be a bit more lenient. But you can put a condition on if you want, and then I guess it's up to us whether we whether we ultimately enforce any breach or not, if that's the way it goes. Or we'll also have our environmental health colleagues, of course, to back us up regardless of planning if a nuisance is being caused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Keith. I'll go back to Councillor Robertson then. Councillor Robertson, you've heard the suggestion by Councillor Irving Swift. You've heard the answer by Keith Thursfield, what the government has suggested during the year. Do you want to add that in addition to your proposal or not?
I think basically that I'd like to go along with what the officer has just suggested. In other words, be more lenient and in special times.
So leave it as it is, as per officers. Yeah. And you're happy with that, seconder? Councillor James, are you happy with that? Can't
Yes,
hear you.
I'm happy with that, Chairman.
Okay. Right. Speakers. Tony? Are there any speakers wishing to speak?
None indicated, Chairman.
Right. We have a proposal then that the application be approved as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in favour, roll call, please, Marina.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Dabbs.
For.
Councillor Frost.
For.
Councillor Harris.
Abstain.
Councillor Irving Swift.
Against.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Longley.
For.
Councillor Matton.
For.
Councillor Parker.
Against.
Councillor Ritchie.
Beg your pardon, for. Got it that time.
Councillor Robertson.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Wesley.
For.
9 in favour, 3 against and 1 abstention, Chair.
Thank you, Marina. The application is approved as per officer's advice. Next application is 0657 and is in Littleborn. Over to you, Chong.
Thank you, Chairman. I just get to the slides first. This application actually relates to a parcel of land that lies to the southwest of Hillmorton Lane and is actually considered to be in the open countryside, but on the edge of Littleborn village. You'll see from the site location map that immediately to the northern boundary, there lies number 28 Hillmorton Lane, and this property has recently been divided into 2 flats and has a first floor window in its side elevation that serves a living room and looks onto the application site. The proposal itself is for the construction of 9 dwellings, which will provide 4 houses and 1 bungalow for affordable rent, and 2 houses and 2 bungalows that are local market housing. Clearly, the development does lie in the open countryside, and in normal circumstances, such a proposal would not be supported by policies. However, this particular proposal is an exception site and has also been subject of a viability assessment. That viability assessment has been considered by our affordable housing officer and is considered to be satisfactory in addressing the current housing needs survey. You'll see from the report that there are some concerns that have been raised by the parish council in relation to the validity of that housing needs survey. However, officers can confirm that that housing needs survey was conducted in 2018 and is still considered to be valid. Most housing needs surveys are valid for 3 years, Chairman. You'll also see from the report that there are a number of concerns regarding the traffic impact on Hillmorton Lane and also concerns regarding overlooking from the proposed development. I can confirm that the proposal has been subject to amendments And if you see within the report itself, the County Highway Authority are now satisfied that the proposal does meet and address their highway concerns. Equally, in relation to 28 Hillmorton Lane, whilst officers accept that there is a window on the first floor, equally that window would be in excess of 22 metres from the nearest proposed dwelling, and as such would meet our guidelines with regards to habitable facing windows. Taking all those elements into account, Chairman, officers are satisfied that this proposal does meet the housing needs survey. It will provide much needed affordable housing within an area which has demonstrated to have a need, and would provide such dwellings without any impact on with respect to loss of privacy or compromise to highway safety. And as such, we recommend it be approved, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chung. We have 3 speakers. The first one is Christine Newhouse, who's against the application. Christine, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of all the residents of 28 Hillmorton Lane. The planning officer report suggests that the impact on our privacy will be minimal, but we obviously consider that the impact on our privacy would be hugely significant. The planning officer report makes reference to the bedroom windows of the new dwellings being considered to be far enough away from the living space on the second floor of our property to have minimal impact. Within our household, there are 2 elderly residents, 2 adults of working age and 2 primary school age children. We're not 2 separate flats. The house has not been separated. It is one dwelling. We've arranged our accommodation to suit multi-generational living. The picture that you can see is of the top living space, looking directly down on where the gardens will be and the houses. The gardens of plot 1, 3, 4 and 5 directly back onto the boundary of our property, with no plan to erect a fence or plant shrubs to protect our privacy at all. The new dwelling's patio doors will be directly facing our downstairs window living area. I also submitted a picture of that. I'm not sure if that's available, but it would enable us and the new residents to look directly into each other's living space, especially when the new residents or ourselves are in our gardens. Our windows upstairs and down, looking out onto the new development, are rather large. They're 7 foot by 4 foot. And although the distance of the second floor window to the bedroom windows may be considered to be far enough away in regard to planning policy, going from having no neighbours on the south side of our property since 1979 to going to have 4 new neighbours directly abutting our rail and post fence will have a significant impact on our outlook and privacy. We'll be the only house on Hillmorton Lane with 4 gardens along our boundary fence, and the activities that we undertake within our residence will have to change should the application be approved. For example, regular bird watching and stargazing inside and outside using binoculars. We'll have to change where we sunbathe in the summer, what we wear on the south side of our garden. We will feel like we will need to shut the blinds each time we are sat at the dining table having a meal or reading the paper so as to protect our privacy, especially downstairs. The rail and post fence that we've got in place is to ensure that there's good light for my father's-in-law vegetable patch, which he's had since 1979. The maintenance of which has been his only consistent source of exercise over the last 9 months due to the recent and ongoing restrictions. Even in pre-COVID times, the garden is used on a daily basis by all residents living in the property and has always been an important aspect of maintaining our physical and mental well-being. This has become even more apparent in the current pandemic, with our home being our only sanctuary. Also, the development phase of this proposal will have significant impact on the use of our dwelling due to noise and the close proximity to which the workmen may have to come to our border, especially in these unprecedented times of COVID. The 2 elderly residents are at home all day.
3 minutes, Chair.
And the garden is the only place they feel secure from the virus to undertake exercise. I'm a key worker, and that will disrupt where I'm working from. But to conclude, should this development be approved, the finished site, along with the development, will have a significant impact on our physical and mental well-being, as we have to adapt to using our dwelling in different ways to maintain our privacy. Thank you.
Could you finish now, please? Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker is Louise Tarpley from the Parish Council. Louise, you have 3 minutes. Are you there, Louise? I don't think she is.
Chairman, she is there. She appears to be having some trouble with her microphone.
Okay. So you are there, Louise. Well, are you muted or you're not working? I'll put the next speaker on first then. If you can't get through. Can you get through, Louise, or not?
Chairman, she's not muted, but we can't hear what she's saying.
Okay. Right. Well, I'll go to the next speaker to see if she can sort herself out. So I heard a voice then.
Chairman, we have a copy of what Councillor Tarpley was due to say, so we could read that out for her.
Yes. Well, if she can't speak, we'll give you one more chance. Can you speak, Louise Tarpley? Well, we're going to read your comments out. Keith, sorry, not Keith. Tony, can you read it out, please?
Yeah, just give me a second, Chairman. Yes, Chairman, I've now got the speech. Thank you for inviting me to speak on behalf of Littleborn Parish Council, who have raised an opposition to this planning application on behalf of many of the Littleborn residents, and who have previously purchased land to prevent development on Hillmorton Lane. The vast majority of the planning application revolves around the housing needs survey. There is insufficient evidence to suggest the need of additional housing in Littleborn. The survey was completed by 9% of Littleborn households. At least one respondent has found property elsewhere. The HNS includes 4 people from the housing register added by DDC. This accounts for 80% of the properties the developers and DDC have decided are required for affordable rent. These people did not complete the survey. Based upon the survey responses, there is a need for affordable housing to buy, not to rent. DDC has already met and substantially exceeded its housing needs quota for the period 2011 to 2029. With regards to section 106, at present, the only beneficiaries are DDC, as they are receiving substantially discounted properties and the village is receiving nothing. In view of the existing sewage system being barely adequate to service the houses currently using it, there may be major issues with additional capacity requirements. Under section 106, considerations should be made to address these needs. A condition of the planning application should be that a full inspection is made of the main sewage system at the expense of the developers, and they should commit to making good any repairs or replacements deemed necessary based upon expected increased capacity. It has been noted in the JMS group report that there will be a sewage pumping station to pump sewage up to the existing sewage system, but no specific mention is made of this in the planning application. The planning application states that visitor parking will be on the highway. Nisa Mogul's letter of May 2020 states that the carriageway should be a minimum of 5.5 metre wide to accommodate visitor parking. This is relevant for those properties in the new development, but not those facing Hillmorton Lane, where the road width is 4.9 metres at the northern end of the development, narrowing to 4.5 at the southern end. Parking in Hillmorton Lane by residents and visitors of these properties does not thereby follow this rule, resulting in accessibility issues. The proposal contravenes various aims and guidelines laid out in the WNJCS and the NPPF, and in DDC's planning strategy paper, Settlement and Countryside Local Plan Part 2 for Daventry District, written by Alan Chandler. Building should be prioritised in areas where facilities with available facilities. Littleborn is classed as other villages, i.e. very few or no facilities. Access in primary and secondary service villages should be prioritised when looking at housing development. Had there been the appropriate and timely consultation with Littleborn Parish Council?
3 minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Can you wind up, please, Tony?
Yeah, just a couple more sentences, Chairman. Had there been the appropriate timely consultation with Littleborn Parish Council and Littleborn residents prior to the application, all parties would have been fully informed of the reasons for the decisions which have been made. There are other concerns that LPC would have liked to discuss and resolve with DDC, but they have not had the opportunity. The representatives who attended a meeting was, excuse me, was unable to stay and was unable to answer many of the queries. I'll end there, Chairman. There's still a couple of sentences to go. Thank you.
Thank you. The third speaker is Mr. Gulliver, who's for the application. Mr. Gulliver, you have 3 minutes again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Neil Gulliver, the Development Services Manager for Northamptonshire Rural Housing Association. As one of the leading providers of rural affordable homes in Northamptonshire, I'm very pleased to be able to confirm my support for this planning application. The recent housing needs survey completed by Daventry District Council confirms the needs for all 9 homes proposed for this site, including 5 affordable homes for social rent and 4 local market homes for purchase. We have agreed terms to purchase the affordable homes, and as an experienced specialist rural housing provider, we have considerable experience and expertise in the management of affordable rural homes and believe that we are well placed to ensure that the homes are locally allocated in line with the proposed Section 106 agreement. Our experience indicates that in most cases, once affordable homes are built, they will be oversubscribed with locally qualified applicants. I can confirm that the applicant has fully consulted with me to ensure that the proposed homes meet our specification, including the more generous 2015 Government National Space Standards. We are pleased that the homes will be heated utilising the latest air source heat pump technology, which will reduce energy costs and fuel poverty for our residents, together with reductions in carbon dioxide emissions to tackle the climate emergency. The affordable bungalow will be built to incorporate a wet room to ensure compatibility for more frail elderly residents. We have worked with the applicant to deliver a number of rural affordable home developments, most recently in Walgrave, which was completed using a similar cross-subsidy delivery model where local market homes cross-subsidise the provision of affordable homes. We are pleased that the applicant is a local builder and will be using local labour to construct the development and help the local economy. We have no doubt that this model will again prove successful in providing much needed local, rural, affordable and market homes for those in housing need in Littleborn. I would therefore urge the committee to support this application. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Going to the local member, who is Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an interesting application. I find it so because of the conversations that I've had with a number of people following the submission of the application. Views are held very strongly, but many of them are erroneous or irrelevant. It is true to say that this will make a difference to the land and the aspect of that area of Littleborn. But we all know, Chairman, that no one has a right to a view. And so the fact that the view will change cannot be used as a reason to refuse a planning application. Another view that has been raised frequently is that the housing needs survey was not good evidence to show an actual need. A housing needs survey is not a referendum. It doesn't need a large turnout in order to carry its weight. Once we have a housing needs survey, we have to do something about how do we provide that for that need. And this is resulted in this case, in this application. I have listened to what people have said, Chairman, both this evening and throughout the weeks during the development of this application and its processing. Some of the things I've heard I would not repeat, and they are quite despicable. Those regarding the need and the likely occupants of this housing. I have looked very carefully at the planning officer's report. I have spoken with the affordable housing officer many times during the development of this application, and I can find no planning reason at all why it should not be approved in accordance with officer's advice, and I make that as a proposal, Chairman, that it should be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Do you have a seconder?
Councillor Longley, Chairman.
Councillor Longley, you wish to speak?
Yeah, very pleased to second that, following Councillor Chandler's comment. Now, I know Littleborn quite well, but the one thing that struck me since I've been on the planning committee is that we've got to get the balance right for these villages, because if you looked at fairly recently, Cretan came up with some houses, and if you looked at Cretan over the years, it's progressively declined as a village. It's got smaller, the population got older, the schools closed, the pubs shut, as far as I could see. There is a shop, admittedly. We've got to be very careful that we don't wind these villages down. And I think that a healthy input of properties, don't want to overdo it. I agree with that. And it's getting the balance right. And I think the affordable homes on here, plus one or two commercial, I think they've got it as good as you're likely to ever get it. So I'm extremely pleased to second this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor. Tony, speakers.
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Harris, Councillor Irving Swift, Councillor Dabbs and Councillor Ritchie.
Right, okay, Councillor Harris.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think we have to welcome applications like this. I completely agree that the local plan does usually indicate that it's primary villages and secondary villages that take the bulk of development, but the reality is that other villages will and do have to play their part in adding small developments such as this nature, and obviously with the mix for rent and low reasonable priced property, that also makes complete sense. One of the issues that seems to be of concern is the granted you have no right over view, but there does seem to be a question about privacy. So it's a question really, I guess, to Chung, whether there is any issue or anything that can be done. It seems to be at the end of the gardens, that back onto the development, whether that's a reality and whether there is anything that can be done to help that for existing residents. But other than that, I can't see any reason particularly to object to this, but I am obviously concerned that local people have to adapt to it, and if there's anything that can be done on the privacy front, that would be welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you. Chung, I think there's some talk of a close border fence, isn't there?
If we look at the late representations, members will see that there's a condition added in relation to the installation of a 1.8 metre close bordered fence for along that section of the northern boundary prior to occupation of any of those properties.
Thank you, Chung. So that will satisfy Councillor Harris. Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, I thought the development had quite a good mix of houses, 4 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and bungalows. So, which seems what is required for a lot of villages. My bugbear, and you know that, one of the building, 1 bedroom is 8.5 square meter. And if you look at the drawing, they made one bed very comfortable. It's a single bed bedroom, but the bedroom look huge. But 8 square meter for a bedroom on the European. When I lived in England, in France, or because I am French, no bedroom could be less than 9 square meters. So I do think we have to. I don't know how, and I'm sure our officers are listening. I know there is no law to tell how big a bedroom should be, but I think 8.5 square meter, it's on the small side. That is my only reserve on the whole development. Otherwise, I think they have tried to do a nice little treatment with the frontage and so on. So I think it's a good development, and I'm glad they add the fence. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Dabbs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I find these sorts of applications, they're obviously becoming quite frequent, that we're seeing an outside of village exceptional circumstances, and therefore encouragement to approve them, and in many cases supported by a housing needs survey. And I just find it odd that we have a massive disconnect between, you know, I'll read off what we've got on the first page. The housing requirement for rural areas has been met. And it seems like what we essentially have is a loophole, which means if you can do a housing needs survey, you can have your mini development. And I'm not sure, you know, I'm sure whether this is the appropriate forum for discussing these sorts of things, but it just strikes me as a bit, it's a disconnect. You know, on the one hand, you've got everything sorted out, and on the other hand, you've got a loophole that you can exploit, and lots of small developers can exploit. So that's all I've really got to say. I doubt whether we can not approve this. So I guess we'll be going along with officers' advice, or at least I probably will. And I'm pleased to see that we've got a boundary that's installed or will be installed. But, you know, as I say, it's a bit of an oddity, I think. I feel it's a weakness in the system, but I'm sure we will see this time and time again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. I don't want to vote against this application. I did put my hand up originally when there was the discussion of the fence, because I had spotted that fence is actually in the, you know, within what is proposed. A fence, of course, will not provide the privacy to others for those who are looking out their bedroom windows. So it may be a bit of a constraint as to how you sunbathe in your back garden. That's why my thoughts turn to trees, and I feel that in an area like this, a site ought to have much more thinking about how you use a site like this to take forward DDC's own policy of trying to plant more trees. This is an area where I can't imagine why anybody wants to live in Littleborn, given that the M1 is so close. It's squeezed between the M1 and the A5. In these circumstances, you want as many trees as possible, not just to absorb carbon dioxide, but to absorb some of the noise as well. And I just wonder if there is not space for squeezing in along that boundary, not just a fence, but even if it means taking a little bit off the edge of gardens, to have a line of trees that will just give a little bit more privacy and a little bit more protection. There's no doubt it's a strong case for having trees in other parts as well, which I think needs to be considered. I didn't hear any mention of car charging points, which by the time that these places will be built, will be very close to the time when any new vehicles have got to be electrically powered. And there's no sign of a place in Littleborn where there is going to be a public charging point, at least not that I'm aware of. And I just feel that with every application now of this type that comes along, we should, wherever we possibly can, be demanding that car charging points are built into every house that has got parking outside it. I think that's essential. But the thing that disappointed me most about this application, I'm all for having affordable housing. We need a lot more affordable housing, irrespective of whether the plan says that we have built enough. But need affordable housing have the drab look about it of old style council estates. You know, looking at the diagrams that are, you know, that are there on the website, they are terribly unimaginative. Can we not really do something? Can we put something in the conditions so that, look, at least there has got to be something done to capture colour into this estate, rather than having it just as, you know, very, very drab new houses, exceptionally unimaginative. You know, it's almost as if they've got the thing up, these were built to be cheap and affordable. And I really think that's not how we should be treating these people, and we need to do more. And I just wonder if that there's any way that a simple condition could be put in. As I say, I want this project to happen, but I would like it to happen in a slightly more attractive way. Thank you.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
can I just
I'll
provide
just
some
come to you.
clarification there? Thank you, Chairman. In relation to some number of queries that have been raised by Councillor Ritchie, first and foremost, I just wanted to refer to condition 13 of the report, and that does actually refer to prior to occupation of the dwellings, that a plan is submitted in relation to position, types of materials and designs of all the boundary treatment. So in relation to planting of trees, we could maybe encourage that as part of the boundary treatment to make soften the boundary and make it more rural as you approach the new housing development. Equally, do want to refer to the attenuation pond, which is at the frontage of the site as well, and that equally softens the approach into the village when you approach the development as well. In respect to car charging points, they are permitted development on certain dwellings. So, and I think that is a choice, that whether or not someone has a car charging point, but most if they're external, or whether they just plug it into their garages, etc., which would be internal. I think that's a matter of choice really on residential dwellings themselves. And obviously, if you refer to the design of these dwellings, we do feel that the design of these dwellings is satisfactory. But again, there is a condition on the report which does refer to the submission of materials. And Councillor Ritchie, I think you'll agree that the materials can make a big difference to a development in terms of lifting their design. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of those conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Tony, speakers.
Yeah, Councillor Parker, Chairman, and Councillor Harris.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understand all the policies, because there's, as Councillor Dabb said, it's like a backdoor method, this is, but unfortunately it went through under the Part 2 plan, where if you come up with a housing needs survey, you can basically add things on at the side of villages, which I don't think is correct in actual fact. I really don't. The thing here is, the only question I would ask here is, because this is an RA3, you are supposed to look up to see if this could be accommodated in RA2, because it's the hierarchy. So I was thinking, can this not be built in Yelvertoft or anything that's near to Littleborn, rather than Littleborn itself?
Thank you, Councillor Parker.
Taken into account.
I couldn't really confirm that, to be honest, Chairman.
Yeah.
But I would have expected that the affordable housing officer would have considered those points before she considered that the development before was satisfactory.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, just to reiterate a couple of points that have been made, really, Councillor Dabbs and also Councillor Parker's just mentioned it. It does seem a little strange. I'm very pleased to hear that these houses are going to be built with technology such as air source heat pumps. But then you have at the same time, we're building them potentially in a village that has no facility, which therefore does require people to move out of that village to go do shopping. I understand there's no bus routes, post office, shops, or very little facility. So I think, again, it's not really probably this moment for debate, but it is one of those issues that does seem to be not entirely stacked up in alignment, where You know, great that we're building houses with technology. Completely echo the comment about planting and trees. That will definitely add something, as well as environmental factors. But then we basically have no other option but to encourage people to drive everywhere, because there's nothing in terms of rural services for them. Thank you.
Thank you. I must say, and I don't very often get involved in a debate, but I was a previous housing chairman for quite a few years, and the exception sites in villages were meant so that people in villages could stay in their villages. They couldn't afford to buy houses in their villages. Their villages were dying because people were moving out. So exception sites were brought in so that people could use these exception sites. People that lived in the actual villages, which was very much welcomed. This is completely separate from large housing allocations that different villages have to take, different areas have to take. So this is to allow people, even if there are no facilities in these villages, to be able to stay, and sons and daughters and husbands and wives and everybody to be able to stay in those villages. I strongly support it with my previous hat on. Tony, other speakers?
None indicated, Chairman.
Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in favour, over to you, Marina, rather. I called you Maria for a minute. Marina, for a roll call.
Councillor Chandler.
Alan.
Councillor Chandler.
You're muted. Councillor Chandler, you're muted. That's it.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I had a technical problem. 4.
Councillor Dabbs.
4.
Councillor Frost.
Same.
What was
Could you repeat that, please, Councillor Frost?
Yeah, sorry, I abstain.
that? Councillor Harris.
4.
Councillor Irving Swift.
4.
Councillor James.
4.
Councillor Longley.
4.
Councillor Matton.
4.
Councillor Parker.
4.
Councillor Ritchie.
4.
Councillor Robertson.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Wesley.
4. 1.
12 in favour and 1 abstention, Chair.
Thank you, Marina. The application is approved as per officer's advice. The next application is in Woodford Hulls, and the number is 0959. Over to you, Chum.
Thank you, Chairman. Bear with me a moment while I share this screen with you. Okay. The application itself lies in the centre of Woodford Hulls and actually lies in the Woodford Hulls Social Club car park itself. And the application seeks consent for change of use of the car park for the permanent stationing of a van for the sale of hot food takeaway. Members will be very familiar with this application site. When in 2019, May of 2019, temporary consent expired for the positioning of a trailer for hot food takeaway. Subsequent to that, an application for permanent siting of a trailer for hot food takeaway was submitted. That consent was refused and an appeal dismissed. The trailer itself has now been removed from the site. However, you'll see from this photograph that a van has recently come onto the site and has been in operation since May 2020. And despite initial indications that they'd be driven on and off the site were not selling hot food. It has remained in place in the car park with no evidence that's been removed, that has been moved on a regular basis. Accordingly, officers took the view that due to the degree of permanency and the fact that the van was being used for the sale of hot food independent of the social club, this did amount to the material change of use which would require the benefit of planning permission, and hence the application is before members tonight. In dismissing the appeal itself, the inspector referred to the impact of the previous trailer on the conservation area. So in relation to the current application, the officers have consulted the conservation officer with respect to the siting of the van, which you'll see would be part where the silver car is at present, and would be sited approximately 20 metres south from the original position of the trailer. In terms of the comments on the conservation officer, it states that the current application relates to a smaller vehicle of more domestic size and height. It acknowledges that the vehicle itself is being moved further away from the public footpath, so it would now not be immediately visible on entering the car park from the path and when also approached from the footpath from Hinton Road. The car park would be seen against a backdrop of vegetation and in the context of other parked vehicles as well. The social club itself is described within the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Guide as a building of local architectural and historic interest. However, the Conservation Officer also acknowledges that the external spaces which are associated with the social club, including the beer garden that's enclosed by high metal fencing and overlooks the car park, the rear car park, and also the flat roof side and rear extensions are unsightly features, and these make no contribution to the significance of the main building. Equally, these elements are not important parts of the conservation area. In the proposed new location, the vehicle itself would not affect anyone's ability to appreciate the architectural function of the social building, and it would not materially alter the character and appearance of this part of the conservation area. And thus, in their opinion, there would be no harm caused to the significance of the heritage assets, which includes the social club itself or the conservation area. You'll see from the report that there are a number of concerns raised by the parish council, including that of the impact on the conservation area, but equally there are concerns raised regarding use of the proposal and how it affects neighbouring properties, how it has, in terms of the users themselves, the employees, have raised a number of concerns that there is in relation to litter, in relation to antisocial behaviour, and in relation to or non-use of the social club facilities. And if we look at the report, we will see that all those concerns have been investigated by environmental health officers, and environmental health officers have confirmed that they have no objections to the application on the basis that the issues which have been raised have been dealt with. They've been investigated on several occasions. They've not found to be any statutory nuisance level that would require any further action to be taken. Equally, you'll see from the crime prevention advisor, design advisor, states that there's been no antisocial behaviour orders or issues raised to them as well. So, having regard to the comments from the conservation officers, and the comments from the crime prevention design officers and also the environmental health officers, we see no reason that this particular application be refused, Chairman. I would so recommend it for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We have 3 speakers, or we may have. Mike Willis, who's against the application, is the first. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I've got 3 slides that I presented.
Yeah. If you just bear with me a moment, I shall.
Thank you.
don't seem to be able to end this. Just bear with me a moment, please.
Do you need the slides straight away, sir, before you
Yes, I
start?
think.
Yes, I do. They're
Yeah,
just
just bear.
three.
Is this the one, I think?
No,
No,
that
this is the
looks
parish
like.
council one. Just bear with me. I think it's this one.
Yeah, can we go full slide? Thank you. Okay, if you just go up to the first slide, please. Okay, so my name's Mike Willis. I'm representing 15 homeowners around the proposed development. Just want to go quickly over some recent planning activities because I think it's important we keep this in mind. This planning committee voted to reject this application when it was under 0386 back in September 2019. The operator appealed the decision and it did go to the National Planning Inspectorate in March 2020. This appeal was dismissed. In the meantime, we expected then that was the vehicle would be removed, but actually a second van arrived on site and we had a 2-month period where we had 2 vans on the premises. We've now had an additional, this latest submission, 0959, in November, and in December, the Woodford Hulls Parish Council voted unanimously to reject the application for the 3rd time. If you go to the blue bar, we need to remember that the National Planning Inspectorate concluded that the development failed to preserve the character and appearance of the Woodford Hulls and Hinton Conservation Area. Thank you. If we go to slide 2, there's 2 images there. First image on the left is the old trailer. The image on the right is the new van. The new van is bigger. It's got a ramp up the side of it to get to the serving hatch. The van is approximately 80 centimetres taller and it's 170 centimetres longer than the original van. There are now 5 houses in Hinton Road that have a clear view of the current van, and they've recently added floodlights to ensure that we get a good night entertainment from it as well. The operator effectively has replaced one static catering trailer with a larger, more garish static catering van, and it's within the Woodford Hulls and Hinton Conservation Area. This is the first true test of our conservation area, and we need to make sure this message gets across. 3rd slide, please. So in conclusion, the planning application 0959 is essentially the same as 0386, which was dismissed by both DDC Planning Committee and the Planning Inspectorate. This is an application for an unsuitable commercial development within a largely residential area contained within the Woodford Hulls and Hinton Conservation Area. It doesn't preserve or enhance the character and appearance of this conservation area. DDC officers have repeatedly refused to enforce the decisions of both the Planning Committee and the Planning Inspectorate, claiming that the original van was static and the replacement van is mobile.
3 minutes, Chairman.
Planning application.
Can you sum up now, sir, please?
Yeah, 2 lines. I confirm that the replacement is still static. Mr. Allen, the original case officer, he summed it up when he said, at present, I do not envisage that such a form of development represents a suitable long-term means of dispensing takeaways. So nothing has changed. The Planning Committee should reject this application again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Right, the next speaker is Jerry Rowe from the Parish Council. No, Jerry Rowe is next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I am Jerry Rowe.
Okay, it's all right. We've got a different. We've got a Mr. Zengi's support come up on the screen.
No, unfortunately, my first slide's been left off. There were 4 slides, but we'll just go with the 3 that have been put there. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I am representing the Woodford Hulls Parish Council, where I'm a councillor, and we have unanimous in our view about this application. We'd like to thank the officers and the committee members for their due diligence in considering this application and the length of time that's gone into the report. We have worked with Mr. Zengi, as the officers have, to try and find a solution to this trading van. We tried to find a suitable site or premises for him to trade within the village, and we would welcome a mobile trader, but not a permanent van in this location. Could we have the next slide, please? This application differs from the previous one in that it's a different part of the car park, but it's still adjacent to the footpath, which is next to the wall, which is part of the conservation area and is not mentioned in the report. But walking through the car park adjacent to that wall is a material part of the conservation area. And the parish council feels extremely strongly that we shouldn't approach the conservation area as having a hole in the middle, that it's okay to put a commercial part in. We adopted that conservation area with the intention of preserving that area of the village. I'm not going to repeat the reasons there that the inspectorate gave for turning down this application previously. All of those reasons still exist, and we feel really, really strongly about it. Third slide, please. Mr. Zengi refused to comply with the previous appeal decision, and he used the inability of DDC to enforce it through COVID to put 2 vans there for 2 months and trade with them when they were clearly not allowed. He's now removed the older van, retaining the larger new van, and then claimed it was mobile for a long time. It is only the officers from DDC who persuaded him he needs planning permission. Contrary to the report, the van is larger, it's not of domestic size, it's a much higher, it's now visible from the social club, the park, the allotments, and the adjacent houses, which are now closer on the new site that's being proposed at its foot. There are substantial issues with littering, and as the officer mentioned, we are extremely concerned, particularly in a national medical pandemic, about the hygiene on site when there is no access to the toilet facilities and washing facilities in the social club. Unfortunately, the timings of the visits by the various inspectorates to this site have not actually picked up on that issue, because when they arrive before the van is open, or at times when they have got access to the toilets, it isn't evident that this is a problem at a lot of the time. It's entirely out of place in this area. Mr. Zengi has already told us that he's going to put another van there once
3
he's
minutes,
got
Chair.
this one.
Thank you.
And he is already in breach of the suggested conditions that are on this planning application, because new larger floodlights have already been installed in contrary of that condition. We appeal.
Can you finish now, please?
Please refuse this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you one question before you go? You referred to the old van and the new van. The old van, you mean as the trailer, not an old van. It was a trailer. Yeah.
It was a trailer, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Has Mr. Zengi arrived or not, Tony?
Chairman, no, he's not arrived. He did indicate that he might have some difficulty attending the meeting. He has sent forward his statement, which is included in the late representations, which was circulated earlier today. But I'm content to read them through for committee, Chairman.
I think it's only fair you read them, and it's only fair that if you go over the 3 minutes, I shall tell you to stop as well. So, okay, Tony, you have 3 minutes to speak on Mr. Zengi's behalf, starting now.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I checked on the planning portal and see the parish council objected to my planning application. I have read their reason for objection. None of them are true, and all of them have been checked and investigated by Simon Watson, and he will confirm all of them are a lie. I'm sorry saying this. My first application has been rejected because my trailer was not looking good and it was too close to the public footpath. I have changed my trailer to a decent van and I'm away from the footpath. I have done whatever the council wanted me to do, move from front to back, don't use the generator, use main electricity, get a water supply, wastewater connection, open late, close early, change your trailer and buy a nice looking van. And now it is your turn to give me a planning permission. I have submitted 3,000 resident signatures of supporting my application Please inform that to committee so they can understand the population of the village have no problem with my business. Hope you will read my email to committee and make sure they do understand parish council have put something which isn't true, and all of their concerns have been investigated by health and safety officers, Simon Watson, and has been confirmed none of them is true. And that's this statement of Mr. Zengi. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Tony. Right, we go to the local member, which is Councillor Frost.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you. And if you have any problems hearing me, just shout out. Sometimes the microphone on here doesn't always work.
Like, Councillor Frost, you sound a bit like you're in a dustbin. So
Is that right? That's what I was concerned about.
Yeah, you ought to be closer to your mic.
Does that help if I do that?
Yes, it does. Very much so.
Thank you. I shall try and do that. So to start with, only because it's come up in comments by the parish council and so on, as you've heard, I just want to touch on this environmental health issue, because no doubt it raised some eyebrows amongst those who read it. Amongst the problems we've got here is that Mr. Zengi, when he started trading on the 19th of May last year, it is true that the social club, which were to provide his hand washing facilities after he goes to the toilet and things, they were shut because of the lockdown. So I just wanted to point that out, because the environmental health officer went round once the social club was eventually opened, but it doesn't get away from the fact that he's only got running hand washing facilities when it's open. Other times, like now, obviously it's shut. Now, apparently that's not strictly a reason to, that's not against the law, but I just think it should be taken into account. The comment that this is sui generis because there's no specific legislation to it. There is, I just want to touch on there's a licensing aspect to this, which is that DDC adopted the Local Government (brackets Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, under which traders such as these require street trading consent in a public area. Now, in this legislation, a public area is defined as any road, footway, beach, or other area to which the public have access without payment. In other words, you know, this car park is obviously fits the bill, but it transpires that we passed a resolution in 2008 that DDC unilaterally opted out of this legislation. I'm obviously puzzled by that, but I'm saying that because ordinarily this gentleman would require a street trading license. I also want to point out that the way this vehicle came about was that DDC sent Mrs. Zengi a letter advising him that if he traded from a vehicle that could be driven independently, as in, i.e. not the trailer that you saw photographs of earlier, he would need permission. So I was keen to try and find out what guidance had been given to him, but so I asked for a copy of the letter, but that request has been rejected, I'm afraid to say. In the notes, it says that the mobile van has been operational on the site since May 2021. I think that's puzzling, or it's rather creative use of the word mobile, because we should remember that whilst the other vehicle was a trailer, it only took a couple of minutes to be driven off. So I would argue it was fairly mobile. So the other point that's made is that this is a completely different application because it's a different part of the car park. But that's, I mean, that's once again, that's an interesting way of looking at it. It's pretty close. I mean, perhaps we can find out the exact dimensions, but I'm thinking a few meters away. As Jerry pointed out, the parish council has really tried hard to find a suitable location, and on that front, I want to point out that there's some opportunities to trade from more conventional premises that have come up. There was, for example, the old post office at 12 Church Street was available to let, and is currently for sale for just under 170,000. I need to refer quickly to the neighbourhood plan policy WH14 because it was very supportive of
Lost you.
Your sound's gone, Rupert. We can just very, very faintly hear you. No, the volume's gone. Your volume level is gone down to virtually nothing. Yeah, you're doing the obvious things. You're switching off and switching back on again. No, something's packed up with your audio. It's not where you're sitting. You've got no level of audio. Right, we're going to have to move on, Rupert. I'll let you come back in. Rupert Frost, everyone, we can disconnect and yeah, okay. You're disconnecting. And you're going to reconnect. We'll see what happens. I think it would be important. Chum, do you want to make any comments on what he's said so far while we're waiting?
Thank you, Chairman. I can only say that in planning terms, the proposal is a sui generis use. In terms of licensing, I'm afraid that that's a very different legislation and a different matter. Certainly not in terms of licensing, it's certainly not a matter for this committee to consider. And with relation to it being a different development itself, the site itself is 20 metres from the original site, so there is quite a distance. Equally, in this proposal has been considered in the context that this has a background of vegetation, and like I said, in terms of the van itself, this one is more mobile. We can physically see that it forms part of the van rather than doing just the trailer. And whilst I appreciate that the trailer itself could have been removed, it was not. And it is on the same basis that the current van wasn't removed, that officers have advised that this equally requires consent.
Thank you. Councillor Frost, are you back with us yet?
I hope so. Am I?
No, I'm afraid you're just the same. You're about, I don't know how we're going to do this. Well, we're not going to, are we? I would gather that you're against the application by the sound of it. Look, we do a few hand signals. Am I right in thinking that you're against the application? Put a hand in front of your face. Right, you're against the application. Were you going to make a proposal to refuse the application or not? Yes, you were. Well, I'm afraid we're going to have the reasons, and we're not going to be able to hear the reasons.
Chairman.
Yes, Tony.
Chairman, it may be that if Councillor Frost tries to dial in on a telephone, we may be able to hear him, but we won't be able to see him.
Okay. Right. Did you hear what was said then, Councillor Frost? If you dial in, we'll be able to hear you. We won't be able to see you, but we'll listen to what you say. Right. Meanwhile, I suppose we could have we could have a speaker, but we really need to hear what he's going to propose, don't we? I'm sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. My dinner's getting ready for my stomach as well. It shouldn't take him too long to dial in, should it, Tony?
It shouldn't do, Chairman, assuming he's got the details to hand.
Well, we'll give him another couple of minutes, and if we don't get anything within a couple of minutes, I'm afraid we'll have to go to let other members speak.
Chairman, I can still hear you, but I just need to plug my laptop in because the battery's got very low.
Oh, right. That happened to me once as well. Well,
Okay.
Councillor Frost, are you around?
I'm back.
No, you're back. Well, I think what I'm going to do is to try and get discussion going with councillors. Should Councillor Frost appear on the phone, I will stop the discussion straight away and let him interrupt and make any proposal.
Join
right?
the meeting.
What was that?
I think we may have Councillor Frost coming back, Chairman.
Right, Councillor Frost.
I believe he's just joining, Chairman.
Ah, yes, I can see a telephone joining. Yes, do you want to speak, Councillor Frost? You're muted at the moment. Oh, no, Councillor Lee. Yeah. Right, speak, Councillor Frost. Can you hear me, Councillor Frost? Put your thumb up if you can. We can't hear you. You're muted on both the telephone and yourself, so that's right. That's that, but you're muted on the phone link as well.
Councillor Frost, we appear to have you joined on the phone on a number ending 198. Is that you? Right.
Right.
But we can't hear you on the phone. According to the information here, it appears that the phone's muted.
Can not the host unmute it?
I've been trying to do that. Unfortunately, it's not working from here. We've lost the phone connection again now.
Right, what I'm going to do, Councillor Frost, is this. I don't know why it was muted, but I'm going to carry on the debate with other members speaking. Now, if you can get back on the phone, Tony will interrupt the meeting straight away, and I'll allow you straight in to make a proposal. But we shall carry on the discussion without you until we get sound from you. Okay? Right. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak at the moment, Tony?
Yeah, Councillor Smith, Chairman.
Councillor Smith, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was looking forward to hearing what Councillor Frost had to say, but I've looked into this one quite closely, and clearly we've turned it down on a number of occasions, and as has been said, it's been brought before.
Join the meeting.
As well. Sorry.
I don't know what that was.
Is Councillor Frost trying to get back in again, Chairman? So we've
Right,
got a telephone. We've got a telephone connection now.
It's muted though.
Still showing as muted.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got the phone connection, but it shows as muted for some reason.
Hi.
Don't know why.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, that's it. Yes, we can hear you now. Go, make your proposal.
Right, there it is. What a shambles. Yeah, I'm going to have to mute my own computer because I'm hearing a big echo now. But I just wanted to go on to say that to endorse what the parish council was saying, they have the neighbourhood plan says that they welcome takeaways on Station Road, and indeed there have been 3 opportunities to trade on Station Road that there's pointless me going through now, but that they have been, and I wanted to suggest we refuse the application and would welcome a seconder.
Could you give me the planning reason why, please?
Absolutely. Dealing first of all with the West Northamptonshire Joint Core Strategy essay, it points out that we should aim to secure development that improves the economic, social, environmental conditions in the area. I would suggest this doesn't qualify on that front. Policy R1 seeks to protect and enhance the character and quality of the rural area's historic buildings. In this case, the social club, it doesn't tick that box either. Policy R2 It says that applications will be supported where they have an appropriate scale for their location, that they respect the environmental quality and character of the rural area. Clearly, that doesn't qualify either. In addition, the planning document didn't mention policy S10, but I'd like to, because it requires us to protect, conserve and enhance the natural and built environment and heritage assets and their settings. Finally, with regards to the settlements and countryside local plan policy ENV10, says that development of poor design that does not add to the character and quality of an area and the way it functions will not be supported. The points in the neighbourhood plan are mentioned in the document, but just for reference, they are policy WH3, WH8, and the one I referred to earlier, which is WH14. Many thanks. Did you hear that?
Yeah, stay on the phone though.
Okay, I will. Yeah.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Smith, you were speaking, so you'd like to speak now in seconding the proposal?
Yes, I would. Yes. So, yeah, I think Rupert, with some delay, has pretty much nailed it. And please remember, with respect to everybody, that we've looked at this on a number of occasions. It's gone through appeal and it's been turned down. It's been fairly difficult by the looks of it for the parish council and the various residents. There's other opportunity for Mr. Zengi to conduct business within Woodford. So I don't think we're going to affect him hugely. It just means people will be driving somewhere else. So yes, I support the proposal to refuse this particular application.
Thank you. Speakers, Tony.
Yes, Chairman, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Dabbs.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. Can I just start with a couple of questions of things I'm not very clear about? Mr. Zengi, in his statement, talks about how he now has got, he uses mains electricity, he's got a water supply, a wastewater connection, and so on. I mean, from what I can recall in the past, the lack of these was a, it was a major factor against his doing business in this car park. Does that mean he's getting these services through the social club?
Yes,
he's getting it through the social club. So the car park presumably is the car park of the social club. It belongs to the social club.
Yes, it does.
So that presumably puts in a slightly different position. I wasn't aware that, that Mr. Zengi would then be in a position to apply for planning permission for what he wants to do in their car park. But presumably this planning application at least doesn't have the opposition from the social club. Otherwise, the social club could remove him at any time it wanted without needing to come to a planning committee. So the social club appears to be quite happy with this thing. I only know the social club from its front view. I've never been around to look at the joys of its back view, but car parks behind pubs, whether they're in conservation areas or not, are not normally wonderful things to actually look at. And I'm sort of slightly surprised at some of the comments that have been made here. I'm impressed that the environmental health officer and others haven't, I've got no concerns about this application. But what impresses me hugely is the fact that this guy has got 3,000 signatures to support him. Okay, there may have been 3,000 signatures that he got the last time that he made an application. I can't imagine that high percentage of them have all gone vegetarian over the last couple of years. Those of us who are here, who are politicians and go out and campaign for things, would be delighted to have that sort of support for anything that we wanted to do. Daventry District Council would be delighted if we got 3,000 people to respond to its consultation and vision for the whole of Daventry. Yet this guy has got 3,000 people backing him for selling beef burgers in the back of a pub. That counts highly with me. Of course, there will be people who live nearby to this, who, if the wind is in the wrong direction, they get a sort of a free scent of whatever he is cooking. You know, I accept that, you know, that there are going to be people who are not going to feel wonderful about it. But taking account what it is that people in the area want, I'm going to support this application, which means voting against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Dabbs.
Thank you, Chair. I support the proposition of this one. I think I take a dim view, unfortunately, of those who make their applications, have them turned down, and decide that they'll ignore it. I think, should we actually refuse this application, personally, I would recommend the enforcement team to be a little less lenient and a little more forceful to making sure that the decisions that we do make in this committee are actually properly enforced. I can see there's a track record that we've got with this applicant, which I think is unfortunate. And I think in terms of why would I object to this application, why am I supporting the motion? I think it's summed up in the first paragraph of the parish council. It's the same application as before. Yes, it's moved a little bit, but not much has changed at all. So I support Councillor Frost in this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. To be fair, these are two different applications. It's not the same thing. One was a trailer. This is a van. It's in a different position, 20 metres away, which is one hell of a distance. So it is two different applications. Any more speakers, Tony?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Wesley and Councillor Harris.
Councillor Wesley first, followed by Councillor Harris. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. I believe I supported this application last time. Obviously, I was proven wrong by the inspectorate into its validity, but I have massive sympathy with this applicant. Not necessarily his behaviour in antagonising the parish council and various villagers by basically disregarding the decisions that have been made. But because basically, I know it's in a conservation area, but it is in a pub car park. And the way that I view it is that, in essence, this guy can actually drive his van around a pub car park, can move it in and out if he wishes. And what would we all say then? Comments about it being a garish van. Well, he could actually turn up to the social club every day and go for a drink in his garish van and still upset people. You know, there's some spurious arguments around this. The fact remains, it is 20 metres away from the original site, so it does make it a separate application. I'm just not convinced that there's some terrible reasons why we shouldn't accept this, and I think I'm going to listen to the last one, but I think I'm going to go with officer's advice on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. I have also a great deal of empathy. I completely echo the comments made by Councillor Wesley. I don't think this gentleman has gone about this in a particularly sound way at all. It does sound like the parish council have worked quite hard to try and find a resolution. But I do think somebody who trades from a mobile van is very unlikely to want to find a permanent premise. Maybe it at least just on cost grounds above anything else. So that could be a limiting factor. The conservation area, I would just like to mention that in Brixworth, most of you will know that we actually are having a cooperative store built in a conservation area. So the inspector on that basis felt that it was appropriate to allow the going ahead of a store in a conservation area. So I don't think we can just go with an inspector's view of what is right and what is wrong, because it clearly depends on the circumstances, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it. I have empathy from the basis of just looking back at the last 8 and 9 months, also purely from a trading point of view. Many people have been extremely grateful for these types of services over the last 8 or 9 months, given the circumstances that we've gone through. I'm sure additional people have used these types of services that would perhaps not have done in typical times. That doesn't make an excuse for it. However, it does appear that he's made great efforts to create, again, we can debate whether it's larger, smaller, looks better, looks worse, but to my eye, it definitely looks much more professional and cleaner and tidy than the previous version. So there are pros and cons, clearly, like there are for all plannings. And again, my view at the moment is still undecided, but I think it's important to separate the recommendations from the officer's advice and the issues that surround the way that this gentleman has approached this planning application.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Tony?
Chairman, we've got Councillor Parker, Councillor Frost and Councillor Ritchie.
Parker, Frost and Ritchie. Okay, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is to regularise something which is basically a building at the end of the day. The thing we have to remember is what the inspector turned it down on, and moving something 20 metres isn't going to alter that at all. It doesn't matter what anyone says. It's in the conservation area, and that element refers to it does not preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area. If it doesn't enhance the appearance of the conservation area, I don't see how anyone can support it if they are actually supporting conservation areas. So I will go with Councillor Frost on this one, irrespective of what else has been said about the person and what is done and all the rest of it. It doesn't actually follow with the conservation area or the inspector. I see little difference at all, and the van is not being moved, which is what the case officers also said. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Frost.
Chairman, thank you. You can hear me, okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last time this came up, I said that that I have absolute respect for Mr. Zengi, his entrepreneurial spirit, and he's obviously providing a service that many people are very grateful for. We're just simply saying that that we don't think this is a suitable location. I've got two questions, if I may, for Chong. First of all, with regard to the petition, have we seen a copy of that petition, which has got 3,000 signatures? And the other question is confirmation that the vehicle is untaxed. Councillor Wesley pointed out that that it can be driven around, but I'm pretty sure that it's not taxed, so that can't actually happen. Could you help us out on that?
Okay, if I can first refer to the petition. The petition was actually submitted in relation to a previous application, and so consequently we can't have regard to it in terms of the current application. So officers haven't referred to it, and that's actually on the late representations as well. And regards to whether or not the vehicle's taxed, that's not really a concern for us. It's not really a matter for officers to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not even sure now how you would know whether a vehicle was taxed now that we don't any longer have tax discs to make it, to make it that clear. I'm also rather amazed. Technically, the advice that we've just received may be absolutely right, because the petition arose from a previous application. The previous application was essentially about whether or not this guy could sell burgers behind the pub. And we may decide that, all right, we cannot formally regard it as evidence for this particular issue. Probably it wasn't even evidence the last time, but I still regard it as very significant. However, the issue that I had forgot to raise when you last invited me to speak is claim that this guy has been offered different locations. But my interest in his relationship to the social club was the fact that the social club is providing him, no doubt, with a means of getting mains electricity, extraction of waste, and water. If you move him out onto a street, I assume that becomes exceptionally difficult for him. The suggestion that perhaps he could move to to the industrial estate, strikes me as slightly disingenuous from the parish council. He is there. He told us the last time that we discussed the issue. They're there, and the social club allows them to be there because so many people who go to the social club will have a drink in the evening and will have a burger, get a burger on the way home. And that is therefore, it's something that is in the social club's interests, and it is in his interest to actually be there. Where he is within walking distance of most of the Woodford Hulls. Move them away to the industrial estate, and if anybody wants to go there, they're probably going to need to get in their car and actually go. And that is going to be a huge turnoff. I don't even blame the guy. It would be nice if he had a good relationship with the parish council. But I assume from his name that he wasn't born and bred in Woodford. He's a bit of an outsider, I guess. Never met the bloke. But, you know, I can see how some of these relationships may have developed. And I just think in this case, on this particular one, he's got my support because it seems a perfectly reasonable thing to do. If the social club had felt that this was something awful, that was detracting from its character in the conservation area, it would have turfed him out a long time ago. Instead, we have a few houses round about that no doubt don't like the idea that this guy is selling burgers rather near to their gardens.
Thank you. Tony, any more speakers?
Councillor Harris, Chairman.
Right. After Councillor Harris, I want to go to the vote. So unless anything's really seriously pressing, I'm going to go to the vote after Councillor Harris. I think we've divided it long enough.
Chairman, Councillor James put his hand up just as you were saying that.
All right. Well, those two will be the last two then. Councillor Harris first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a really quick point of clarification, really, directed at the officer, linked to Councillor Parker's point, which is there was a very clear reason why it was turned down by the inspector. And I guess my direct question is, why does the officer believe that that has changed? What has significantly changed in relation to the inspector's view of turning it down? Thank you.
John?
If I could just refer to the position of the previous trailer. The position of the previous trailer was right adjacent to the public footpath. The proposal for the new van is set much further into the car park against the backdrop of a significant vegetation and much closer to an area where cars are currently parked as well. So the context in which we're viewing this facility has changed and altered, and having regard to the conservation officer's comments, which do refer to that the officers have now considered the current site to be more acceptable.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I've listened to this debate and for the pros and all the cons, and I'm saying to myself, what's changed since we last considered this application? Before, it was a trailer. Now, it's a van. What's the difference between a trailer and a van? You can take the engine out of a van or just immobilise it and it becomes stationary. And after all, the application is for change of use of part of the car park for the permanent stationing of a van for the sale of hot food to takeaway retrospective. So in other words, it's no change. This is a permanent stationing of a vehicle, which a trailer is a vehicle of sorts. There's no difference at all. So, okay, there is a slight change. It's moved 20 metres further back, but 20 metres is neither here nor there. For example, I can walk within 100 metres of the smell of a burger van, whether it's in Daventry High Street or on the Market Square in Northampton. I can smell that burger smell straight off. So I don't know what a kebab is, but I assume that it does have a smell. It's cooking after all. But I see no difference at all in that, and hence I can't support it. I voted against the last application, and I shall vote against it on this occasion too. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to go to the vote now. There is a proposition that the application be refused. The reasons have been given, and that has been seconded. And I'm going over to Marina now for the roll call. And Marina, I'd like to vote on this one as well when we come to it. Okay.
Okay. Right, Councillor Chandler.
Against.
Councillor Dabbs.
For.
Councillor Frost.
For.
Councillor Harris.
Abstain.
Councillor Irving Swift.
For.
Councillor James.
Are we voting for officers' advice?
No, you're voting for the application. You're voting for the proposition, which is to refuse it.
For.
Councillor Longley.
Against.
Councillor Matton.
Abstain.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
Against.
Councillor Robertson.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Wesley.
Against.
Councillor Osborne.
Against.
6.
Is what you've got. 2. Yeah, 6, 6 and 2. 6 in favour, 6 against, 2 abstentions, Chair.
I shall vote the same as I did on the casting vote, which is against the proposition. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll need another proposition, please.
Councillor Wesley, Chairman.
Yeah.
I propose we accept officers' advice.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Councillor Robertson, Chairman.
Councillor Robertson, yeah. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor Robertson?
No, thank you, Chair. There's enough been said already.
Okay. Well, if nobody else wishes to say anything, over to you for the roll call then, Marina.
Chairman, Councillor Ritchie's got his hand up.
Well, he is allowed to speak because it is a different proposition, Councillor Ritchie.
I only wish to explain that the rather silly looking face that appeared in my screen was simply by clicking the wrong thing while trying to offer myself as a seconder. So just, it was not intended to be a commentary on the proceedings.
I'm sure we wouldn't expect that of you anyway.
That made me laugh.
Marina.
Okay, councillors. Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Dabbs.
Against.
Councillor Frost.
Against.
Councillor Harris.
For.
Councillor Irving Swift.
Against.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Longley.
For.
Councillor Matton.
Abstain.
Councillor Parker.
Against.
Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Robertson.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Wesley.
For.
Councillor Osborne.
For.
Seven, 6.
7, 6. 7 in favour and 6 against, Chair.
The application is approved. That concludes the planning committee, ladies and gentlemen. Can I thank you all for attending? I'm sorry it's been a long time, but you can all now go and eat and drink and whatever you want to do.